This is the final part of my 4-part series where I review games that you can't believe I've never reviewed. Now for the final one, I decided to do a game which I've never reviewed any of the games in the series. Now I do want to say that I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit odd. I've been sick for the last week and I lost my voice. I put this review off as long as I could to try and get my voice back. But since I said I would finish this series in September, I really needed to finish this voice back or not. So I'm so sorry about the way I sound right now. I've never been the biggest fan of Metroid games, mainly because of the loosey-goosey ways of gameplay. I played the original Metroid back in the day, and honestly I have no idea what I was doing. I went from room to room, upgrading weapons and fighting bosses. I'm happy to say that Super Metroid fixed all the problems that I had with the original game. Logically, the game is still very odd. Why is there a place that exists that uses missiles to open doors? And crazy designs in the rooms that make every step possibly your last. How on earth did this place ever pass one OSHA visit? The story of the game takes place right after the Game Boy game Metroid 2 Return of Samus. A Metroid that hatched imprinted on Samus, the main character, and thought it was its mother. I hope that Metroid never looks in the mirror because the first thing it's going to say is, "Oh my god, I must be adopted! I look nothing like her!" She brings the Metroid to some scientists who study it to harness its power. But not long after she leaves, she gets a distress message from them. She arrives and finds the Metroid stolen, and it's her mission to retrieve it. Graphically, the game looks great for a Super Nintendo game. I loved all the different ways the worlds were presented. It controlled amazingly well. There were different ways of jumping, and depending on the weapon that you had on at the time, you could actually use a jump as an attack. Plus, I like the ease of firing a barrage of gunfire at the bad guys who attack you. Sometimes run and gun tactics will work, but other times you might need to keep the creatures alive in order to help you progress in the room. You travel through the worlds finding new power-ups for your suits, and new weapons which can be used to take out the enemies more easily. Those power-ups are not always easily found. Like sometimes you're going to need to bomb areas that look solid, but aren't. This game is all about secret areas, and there are plenty to find, if you really want to stack out your arsenal. While I didn't find the game too difficult, I would say that most of the problems which you're going to find playing the game is getting lost or not knowing what to do. There are very useful maps which you can find throughout the worlds. So if you're ever lost, just look at your map and see if there's an area that you haven't explored yet. Another thing that made the game more difficult was the lack of save points. While they were scattered throughout the worlds, I wish there was more of them. However, since this is a Wii U virtual console game, this is basically a moot point, since it gives you the ability to create a restore point at any point in the game. So this actually makes the game much easier, since you can save right before boss. And if you don't beat them, you'll just restore and try again. Now this is one of those titles that's very hard to review, because overall it's just a game of going from one room to another. However, its complete sense of freedom might be a little off-putting to some, but the game does a good job of keeping you on the right track without flat out telling you what to do. There is an annoying amount of backtracking, but with all the hidden weapons and energy tanks to find, it gives you something to do when you're going back to the areas that you're trying to bypass. Super Metroid is fun. It looks and controls great. Because of the sense of freedom, there's lots of different ways you can actually play the game. This one's an easy recommendation, but I'm sure this is not a huge shock, so I think you should download it now. If you're looking for another Wii U eShop game, why not check out my last review of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past? Or for some crazy reason I can't even imagine, you might want to check out the other time my voice was messed up, with my review of Do Re Mi Fantasy. Thank you for watching this video, because I'm sure it wasn't easy, and I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed.